We all love that rush of motivation. The sudden spark that makes you feel like you can change your life overnight. You watch a powerful motivational video, listen to a speech, or read a quote that shakes your soul. For a few moments you feel unstoppable. You tell yourself, this time I'll do it. This time I won't quit. You start planning, dreaming, and believing that you've finally unlocked the secret to success. But what happens a few days later? The excitement fades, the energy disappears, and reality sets in. That same fire that burned brightly inside you now feels cold and lifeless. You start making excuses. I'll start tomorrow. And before you realize it, you're back where you started. That is the illusion of motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are temporary. They come and go depending on your mood, your environment, and your circumstances. When you're inspired, you move mountains. When you're tired, you can't even lift a finger. That's why people who depend only on motivation never reach long-term success, because motivation might help you start the race, but it can't help you finish it. What finishes the race, what separates the winners from the dreamers, is discipline. Discipline is not about feeling good. It's about doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it. It's the act of showing up every single day, no matter how tired, uninspired, or distracted you feel. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is logical. Motivation asks, do I feel ready? Discipline answers, it doesn't matter. Do it anyway. That's the difference between those who wish for success and those who achieve it. Imagine two people starting a fitness journey. The first is filled with motivation. They buy new gym clothes, post about it on social media, and go to the gym with fire in their eyes. But after a week of soreness and no visible results, the motivation fades. The second person, however, doesn't care about excitement. They go to the gym every day, no matter what. They show up even when they're tired or bored. Weeks later, months later, they're still going, and eventually they transform. The difference? Not talent, not luck, and just discipline. Discipline is the quiet force behind every great achievement. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek attention. It just shows up and does the work, consistently, patiently, relentlessly. That's why the world's most successful people don't talk about being motivated. They talk about being consistent. Motivation gives you the spark, but discipline keeps the fire burning. The illusion of motivation lies in the belief that you'll always feel inspired. You won't. There will be days when you feel lazy, hopeless, or completely drained. There will be mornings when getting out of bed feels like climbing a mountain. And on those days, motivation won't save you. Discipline will. Discipline doesn't care about moods. It doesn't care whether you slept well or not. It doesn't care if it's raining outside or if you're tired from yesterday. It simply demands action. The truth is, the most successful people in the world don't rely on feeling ready. They act, and through action they create momentum. And once you have momentum, you no longer need motivation. The act itself becomes your drive. You stop waiting for inspiration and start creating results. That's where the magic happens. Motivation is like lightning. Bright, powerful, but gone in seconds. Discipline is like the sun. Steady, dependable, and always rising no matter what. You can't control when lightning strikes, but you can count on the sunrise. So stop waiting for the spark. Build your sunrise. Many people say, I just need to get motivated. But the truth is, motivation is not what you need. You need structure. You need a system. You need discipline. Because discipline builds habits, and habits build character. And once discipline becomes part of who you are, success becomes inevitable. Think about it. Everything you admire about successful people comes from discipline. The writer who publishes bestsellers doesn't write only when they're inspired. They write every day. The athlete who dominates the field doesn't train only when they feel energetic. They train every single day. The student who tops the class doesn't study only when they're in the mood. They study when it's hard, when it's boring, when no one else does. That's discipline, and that's why they win. Motivation is like fuel from outside. Discipline is like an engine built inside you. Motivation might run out, but discipline never does, because it's built on habit, not emotion. Once you train your mind to follow through no matter how you feel, you gain control over yourself. You stop being a slave to your emotions and start becoming the master of your life. Discipline gives you freedom. The freedom to live life on your own terms. When you're disciplined, you don't depend on feelings. You depend on commitment. You trust yourself to do what's right, not what's easy. You don't chase motivation. You create momentum through consistency. So the next time you feel unmotivated, remind yourself, you don't need to feel ready. You just need to begin. Every small action you take despite resistance strengthens your willpower. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you grow. That's how champions are made. In the end, motivation is a visitor, but discipline is a resident. Motivation may inspire you for a day, but discipline builds you for a lifetime. That's why motivation fades and discipline lasts. You can't rely on temporary feelings to build permanent success. You need something stronger, steadier, and unshakable. You need discipline. And once you truly understand this truth, once you stop waiting for motivation and start training your discipline, you become unstoppable. Because discipline doesn't just beat motivation. It replaces it. It becomes your way of life. Discipline is not exciting, but it is powerful. It doesn't shine with the same brightness as motivation, but it lasts far longer. Discipline is quiet. It doesn't shout for attention or make promises of instant success. It simply delivers on slowly, steadily, and surely. While motivation is emotional and temporary, discipline is logical and permanent. It is built on commitment, not feelings. It is the habit of doing what must be done, especially when you don't want to. In simple words, discipline means showing up every single day. Whether you're tired, bored, inspired, or frustrated, you show up anyway. You repeat your actions, you stick to your plan, and you trust the process. It's the ability to stay consistent when everyone else quits. The world glorifies motivation, but the truth is, motivation doesn't create greatness and discipline does. Look at any person who has achieved something extraordinary. An athlete, an artist, a writer, or a business leader. They didn't reach the top because they were always motivated. They reached the top because they were disciplined. Kobe Bryant didn't become one of the greatest basketball players by waiting for inspiration to strike. He practiced every single day, sometimes before the sun even rose. He didn't rely on excitement. He relied on routine. That's the essence of discipline. Discipline is not about perfection. It's about persistence. You don't have to do everything right. You just have to keep doing it. Even when you fail, discipline teaches you to get back up. It teaches you to stay focused on the goal, no matter how many times you stumble. Motivation might make you start fast, but it's discipline that helps you finish strong. Another truth about discipline is that it's often boring. It doesn't always feel rewarding in the moment. Waking up early, exercising, reading, studying, these things might not give you instant results. But over time, they build a foundation of strength and consistency that nothing can break. That's why disciplined people appear calm and confident, because they know they're building something solid, one step at a time. Discipline is also deeply connected to self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen your trust in your own word. You prove that you can rely on yourself. That inner confidence is priceless. Most people break promises to themselves. They say they'll start tomorrow. They'll try next week. They'll begin when they feel ready. But readiness never comes. Discipline doesn't wait for the right time. It creates the right time. When you practice discipline, you begin to realize that your emotions are not in control. You are. You learn to act based on your goals, not your mood. That's how true freedom begins. Because freedom is not doing whatever you feel like doing. Freedom is the power to do what you should do, even when you don't feel like it. Let's take an example. Imagine two students preparing for an exam. The first one studies only when they feel motivated. They wait for inspiration or a burst of energy. The second one sets a schedule and sticks to it, whether they feel like it or not. When the exam arrives, who performs better? The second one, without question. Why? Because discipline builds consistency, and consistency creates mastery. Discipline also builds resilience. Life will test you with challenges, failures, and distractions. When motivation dies, most people quit. But disciplined people don't depend on feelings. They depend on systems. They've trained their minds to keep going no matter what, and that's why they keep growing, even when things get hard. One of the biggest misconceptions about discipline is that it's restrictive, that it limits your freedom or makes life dull. But in reality, discipline gives you the ultimate freedom, the freedom to achieve your dreams, to control your destiny, and to live life on your own terms. Without discipline, you're a slave to your emotions, your laziness, and your excuses. With discipline, you become the master of your mind and actions. Discipline is like building a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. The first few days are the hardest. You'll want to quit. You'll tell yourself it's too difficult. But if you push through, something incredible happens and it becomes a habit. Once it's a habit, it becomes automatic. You no longer need motivation because discipline has taken over. Every successful person understands this principle. They know that progress doesn't happen in one big leap. It happens in small, consistent steps. Discipline is those steps repeated daily, even when the world isn't watching. It's what you do when no one is cheering you on. It's what you do when you're tired, busy, or uninspired. That's what separates winners from quitters. And here's a secret. Discipline eventually creates motivation. When you see progress, or even small progress, it fuels you. You start feeling proud, strong, and capable. That sense of achievement generates new motivation. So discipline and motivation are connected, but discipline must come first. Motivation might start the fire, but discipline keeps it burning.